Charlemagne had the dream of restoring the Roman Empire for Christendom, and he truly became the first Roman emperor since the fall of West Rome, and he set the foundation to what would become the Holy Roman Empire in the following centuries. And he became a legend. But sadly, he also died before achieving his dream of uniting and restoring the true Roman Empire, and his children lost his own empire only few generations later. But what if Charlemagne's soul never left this world? What if he somehow returned to finish what he started, uniting and restoring the ancient Roman Empire almost 2 centuries after the world thought he died? I'm the student, and this is the return of Charlemagne in 100% vanilla, Iron Man, achievement compatible, Crusader Kings 3. Now, for those of you who played CK3 before, you probably know that you can't play Charlemagne in the beginning of the game. And that is because the game starts already 60 years after his death. The interesting thing is that in Crusader Kings 3 there are several of those basically dead characters that are still implemented into the game. You can, for example, have a look on the title history of the Byzantine Empire, which will actually trace back until Augustus himself. So you can actually see how those dead characters looked that lived before the start of the game. And same also goes for Charlemagne, of course. So you can actually see how the character is built in CK3 for him. And yeah, you can actually see how he looks as well. The interesting part is that you can actually bring him back. I'm not joking, you can actually bring him back with a very, very interesting trick. The thing is, this only works with one single character in the game, and that is the only relative of Charlemagne that is close enough and still lives in the start date, and that is his only living grandchild, Charles the Bold. Charles the Bold actually controls the western Frankian kingdom, while one generation later, so one generation below him, controls the other kingdoms of Lotharingia, Italy, and East Francia. So basically Charles the Bold is the only relative that is close enough to do this trick. And yeah, therefore I of course started as Charles the Bold, as King of West Francia. And yeah, basically the first thing I did was consolidate the realm and try to increase my personal income, because yeah, of course, if you want to restore the Roman Empire with one character, which is not going to be Charles the Bold, by the way, he's not even going to live long enough, like at all, to restore the Roman Empire. So I'm of course going to do that with the revived Charlemagne. Even Charles the Great, if he revived, would need actually a decent amount of money and a stable enough realm to actually make this work. So I basically spent all of the first years as Charles the Bold to increase my income and to consolidate the realm by doing several things, building up in my domains that of course my heir is going to inherit, and also making the vassals loyal and increasing opinion of them. Now we get to the really interesting part, which is the reincarnation of Charlemagne. Yes, there is a mechanic in the game which is called reincarnation, which is basically reviving old characters, okay? And you're going to see what that means for Charlemagne in this specific case in a second. But first of all you need for that is a religion that actually offers you to get the reincarnation, which in my case was Catharism. Catharism is a Christian religion that exists in the game, and that actually has reincarnation as one of their tenets. So you don't even have to convert out of Christendom. You can keep being Christian. You just have to convert to Catharism. And then the other things that you need to do is you of course need to get a new heir, because all of your current children as Charles the Bold are clearly not the reincarnation of Charlemagne. So you need a new son that becomes the revived Charlemagne later. And you need to make him your only primary heir, so that he first of all, inherits all of your titles. But second of all, you need him to be your heir to actually revive Charlemagne in his person. And once you've done that, and once you converted to Catharism, in my case, actually a lot of my vassals even converted with me, because they had such a high opinion of me. Then after that, what you can do is you can choose your primary heir, which in my case was my son that I named Karl, of course. Karl because Charlemagne in the game is also called Karl, so the Frankian name for Charles. I used this child Karl to then use the divine reincarnation decision on him. And what that basically means is that you state that he is the actual reincarnation of Charlemagne, meaning the soul of Charlemagne, and his memories, by the way, are actually in the body of this child. I think the event is even pretty cool that that happens for that, because it's basically like your son, Karl, in this case, he tells his father, Charles the Bold, that he has some weird dreams about something that he didn't experience himself, something that he can't really explain why he sees these things. Then if you basically tell him that he is the reincarnation of Charlemagne, he must be, otherwise he can't have these dreams of Charlemagne's memories, right? What happens in the game is that the DNA of that character, of that child, changes to the exact same DNA that the historical character Charlemagne has. So the character, the dead character in the game, has a DNA, and the exact DNA is getting copied into the child, which literally means that you have now an exact clone, or, as I would say, the revived Charlemagne. A reincarnated personality of Charlemagne in the body of my heir and child. But now I actually have to start playing as him and restore the Roman Empire. And if you restored the Roman Empire in CK3 before, then you know that restoring the Roman Empire with one single person is very, very hard. Okay, and for that reason I wanted to switch to him as early as possible to get him leveled up in stats, in education and all that, as well as possible, as the historical Charlemagne of course also was very educated. And then use him and his power of the dynasty that he has, the Karling dynasty of course, renamed after him, to then reclaim the Roman Empire and actually fulfill the dream in his own lifetime. The education started actually pretty well. I educated and consolidated the young Karl, which, he actually became bossy, which is pretty good actually, because I, of course, wanted him to have the same education trait as the historical Charlemagne, which is the martial traits. And then I, of course, had several rebellions because I wanted to stay Catharist for, at least my childhood. Later I would convert to Catholicism again. But yeah, that basically gave me a few rebellions, and also on top of that, several, not just one, several Northmen attacks that wanted to take either Flanders or, Normandy, obviously. But anyways, I fought them off with, very well-placed marriages of myself, basically, to get several alliances helping me with that. And in the meantime, I basically did everything that I could to basically increase every stat possible of the revived Charlemagne that I could, which included, of course, a university visit for a better education trade. This way, I basically struggled myself through the childhood of Charlemagne, and it was really interesting to see how, actually you saw that a second ago when I talked about the DNA change. You can actually see that he becomes more and more look-alike, like the portrait of the dead Charlemagne in the character menu. That you can actually see how he looks, of course, as an old man, like 72 or something, I think he died. Yeah, you can actually see how he gets more and more look-alike him and the actual Charlemagne, which was really fun to see, and I really had the experience of thinking this was how Charlemagne experienced his childhood, which was quite funny. But now the childhood is over and we've got some serious business to do, which is, first of all, restoring the Holy Roman Empire again by collecting what Charlemagne's children lost. You have to do everything yourself, okay? You can't rely on your children. You have to reincarnate to get the job done. So what I did was I claimed Carolingian titles. Now, I already started with a claim on East Francia and Italy, I think, from my father, Charles the Bold, who had pressed claims on these kingdoms. But then on top of that, I used the dynasty interaction to actually claim the kingdom of Lotharingia. And then, of course, take all of these kingdoms in wars. First of all, Italy, then Lotharingia, which was already enough to restore the Holy Roman Empire, a small version, of course. It's going to get bigger, no worries. But basically you need 3 kingdoms, which I think either the West Francia or the East Francia kingdom also. And yeah, on top of that, you need a good opinion of the Pope, which means I had to also, of course, switch to become Catholic. You can't restore that otherwise. And yeah, then I actually restored the Holy Roman Empire, which, quite funnily, the text of the event for the restoration said, "From Augustus to Charlemagne to Karl the Great," which is Charlemagne. So yeah, I obviously reclaimed the title of Charlemagne as Charlemagne, which is quite funny. And yeah, he even was called after Charlemagne. So Charlemagne in the game is called Karl the First, the Great of the Holy Roman Empire. And this reincarnation of Charlemagne was called Karl the Second, the Great of the Holy Roman Empire. So literally the second Charlemagne. And yeah, of course, all I need to do now was getting crowned to actually get the Reichskrone, the same crown that also Charlemagne himself actually had. Now I was even more lookalike Charlemagne the First, as of course the world starts to ask questions about how can it be that such a similarity exists in these 2 characters. I expanded also into Burgundy after that, did my second university visit to become an exalted warrior, so even a better education trait than the original Charlemagne character has in the game. Of course, with the original Charlemagne's memories, this wouldn't be difficult for him, right? And then I also turned against the Pope, because to reform the Roman Empire, you of course need the Roman Duchy and Rome itself. So I took Rome from the Pope, which he excommunicated me for, but no worries. We get this resolved after we actually become a true legend again. On top of that, I could actually diplomatically vassalize a lot of kingdoms. The kingdom of Frisia, which was the remains of the kingdom of Lotharingia, basically. Then also take the kingdom of Bavaria with military force and of course claiming a Carolingian title before that, which basically meant that at this point I restored the Holy Roman Empire as it was when Charlemagne left the earth the first time. So I could now expand the realm, which was an oath I swore at the crowning. So that actually gave me an additional domain limit for my character until the end of the game, basically, until the death of the character, of course, which was pretty nice to increase my strength even further. And trust me, even though I now have a huge Carolingian Holy Roman Empire again, the rest is not going to be easy. Because what my Charlemagne did in this time obviously wasn't really much better than the Charlemagne did before. So yeah, I obviously had to now fulfill the dream of Rome as well, and fulfill Charlemagne's destiny. Now for that, I thought to conquer actually all of the titles. I think you need like 10 or something duchy titles all around the Mediterranean Sea. But then I thought I won't have enough time. I already was 50 years old at that point. Charlemagne was again 50 years old. And we all know he won't really live much longer than 70 years. So I really had to do all of this stuff. The conquest of the entire Eastern Roman Empire, basically, within 20 years. Now the problem is, if I attack the Byzantine Empire, for example, I've got a 5-year truce. And I need like 6 or 7 titles from them, and it's all duchy titles, so I wouldn't even be able to claim them. So the only real option was, and I think Charlemagne liked this option a lot as well, was to actually claim the entire Byzantine Empire. Now the interesting thing is that there were many characters, actually a few women and one single male character who was already 60 years old of the Karling dynasty who had a claim on the Byzantine Empire. And what I did was I invited him to my court as a guest, basically. And then I used my courtier's claim to press his claim on the Byzantine Empire. And that way, of course, he wouldn't become my vassal because he would also become an emperor, such as I am as well. But then, after I actually managed to press his claim, I had a Karling emperor of the Byzantine Empire and myself emperor of the Holy Roman Empire. And what that means is I can now use my dynasty interaction to actually claim the Byzantine Empire from the claimant that I just pressed the claim of. And that actually gave me personally, Charlemagne, the claim on the Byzantine Empire as well. But there is still lots more to do, and then of course in the end I still have to win another war for my own claim at that point on the Byzantine Empire. But first of all, what I did was some crusades, because there are actually a few duchies that you also need in the Muslim world to reform the Roman Empire, which is Antiochia, Palestine, Alexandria in Egypt, and Tunis. The way I did that is actually the same as I used for the Byzantine Empire. I searched for claimants on the African kingdom, on the Duchy of Palestine, and on the Duchy of Antiochia. I invited them to my court so that I then had courtiers with these claims. And as all of these titles are below the emperor title, they would immediately become my vassals once I press their claims. First of all, I did that to Africa. I pressed the claim on the Kingdom of Africa, which means that the entire kingdom, with just one single war, became my subject immediately. And then I did the same thing for the Duchy of Palestine to actually reconquer Jerusalem, of course, for Christendom, which then allowed me, as I had a border to Egypt, to declare a holy war for the Kingdom of Egypt in its entirety. Remember that you can only do one holy war per lifetime. So this was basically the one holy war that I did as Charlemagne. And what was actually interesting is that on my coronation of the Holy Roman Empire, I had an event that said if I ever win a holy war, I would become a crusader. And that is exactly what happened. I got the crusader trait on top of all the other nice traits that I had already. So that was quite fun. And on top of that, of course, the Holy Roman Empire now had a big base not just in Africa, but also in the Middle East and the entirety of Egypt controlled by myself. Then in the meantime take the rest of the Latium state, which is the Roman duchy, from the Pope, which actually meant the Pope afterwards wasn't that mad anymore because he didn't have any land basically. So I could then lift the excommunication of me. Then it was finally time to press Charlemagne's claim on the Eastern Roman Empire. Now, I'll be honest, this war versus the Byzantine Empire, the second one, was very, very tough. I actually had to do crazy things like I had to marry off all of my children for alliances, for new alliances, just for this one war. And at high times, we were fighting like 20,000 versus 15,000, which at this time is actually a lot because you have only 5 slots of men-at-arms available basically. And the Byzantine Empire has the big advantage that they have a lot more men-at-arms regiments because of their special theme system basically. Therefore, I actually had to really struggle to win this war, but in the end I actually managed to do that. That of course meant that at this point I had both titles, the Western Roman title, the Holy Roman Empire title, and the Eastern Roman title, the Byzantine Empire title, united in one single person. That first of all gave me the opportunity to mend the great schism of the Catholic and Orthodox Church, which was pretty great honestly as well. And on top of that, of course, now after of course I did all of the crusades and got all of the other duchies that I need, I could finally restore the Roman Empire. And therefore you can also see it in the text of the restoration event: fulfill the dream of Charlemagne as Charlemagne. Very, very interesting that this actually works in the game. And that gave me the hegemon of the Roman Empire title, which basically means that I have to get crowned again by the Pope again, which by this time liked me again because I was such a living legend. And of course I chose to be crowned with the Reichskrone, the actual crown that Charlemagne had as well. I thought this would be the most fitting, and after that, the interesting thing is I could, on top of being a living legend, also become a living god emperor by consecrating the bloodline, which literally made me a holy person while still being alive. And I think this is the most fitting ending for this entire run, which was a crazy journey. But in the end, have one last look at the character that I created, the revived Charlemagne, who of course is a living legend, a religious icon, which we all know he is more than that. He is a god emperor because of the consecrate bloodline event. He is the hegemon of the ancient Roman Empire. He has a bunch of crazy overpowered lifestyle traits and insane stats, while being the exact clone of Charlemagne, which now that he's actually over 70 years old already, almost 80 years, you can really see how he looks exactly the same as Charlemagne I, proving that Karl II and Karl I the Great, both the Great, are actually the same person. And apparently it doesn't take one legendary life, but 2 to actually have the dream of the Roman Empire come true. I really hope you enjoyed this video. It was a hell of a journey, as I said. This was crazy stuff what was going on, man. A lot of things to keep track on. So I really hope you enjoyed that, and leave a comment and a like if you liked this video, because that really helps out a lot. And we are going to see, as always, on another Monday.